Both princesses confirmed missing in the eastern collapse. Find whoever brings them home alive, and I will give that person anything they ask. Thrina Corvell had buried generals, advisors, and one beloved consort over the course of her 31-year reign, and she had learned, somewhere in the accumulated weight of those losses, how to grieve without breaking. What she had never learned, what nobody could teach an empress, was how to survive uncertainty. The specific torment of not knowing stretched across days that refused to resolve into either relief or finality. Her twin daughters, Ilian and Corvash, had been at the eastern garrison when the Velner incursion shattered the defensive line. The garrison itself had collapsed within hours, swallowed by smoke and chaos and the particular brutality that defined the final days of any losing engagement. Search teams had combed the wreckage for 6 days. They had found armor fragments belonging to the princesses' personal guard. They had found nothing belonging to the princesses themselves. Thrina had not slept properly since. The man who finally brought word wasn't one of her search teams. He was a foreign mercenary named Derek Galloway, contracted through the Coalition's emergency relief network, dispatched to the Eastern Front not because anyone trusted his judgment, but because the relief network needed bodies, and Derek had a reputation for finishing jobs other contractors abandoned. He found Ilian first, 3 days after the garrison fell, buried beneath a collapsed supply tent with a fractured leg and a fever that had already begun stealing her coherence. He found Corvash a half-day later, hiding in a drainage culvert 2 kilometers from the original battlefield, half-starved and convinced everyone she loved was dead, including the sister now lying unconscious against her shoulder. Getting them both back across 40 kilometers of contested, smoldering territory should have been impossible. Derek had no military escort, no medical supplies beyond a basic field kit, and 2 injured princesses who couldn't walk unassisted for more than a few minutes at a time. He simply decided impossible wasn't a category he was willing to accept. He carried Ilian for most of the first day, her fever worsening, her words drifting between coherent and feverish nonsense about people and places Derek had never heard of. He kept her talking anyway because silence felt dangerous, like something that might let her slip somewhere he couldn't follow. Corvash walked when she could and leaned on him when she couldn't, and somewhere around the second night, exhausted past the point of formal speech, she stopped calling him Mercenary and started calling him by name, which felt to Derek like the smallest, strangest victory of the entire journey. "Why?" she asked him during a brief rest beside a dying fire. "Are you doing this? You're not Corvellan. You owe us nothing." "Contract says retrieve survivors," Derek said. "Didn't specify which ones mattered more than others." "That's not an answer." He considered this for a long moment, watching Ilian's fevered breathing beside him. "Somebody's mother is waiting to find out if her daughters are alive," he finally said. "I've been on the other side of that wait before. Didn't care for it." Corvash didn't ask what he meant by that, and Derek didn't offer it. They reached the edge of coalition-secured territory on the 4th day, all 3 of them barely upright, Ilian's fever finally beginning to break, Corvash's feet bloodied through her ruined boots. Search torches appeared on the horizon before they'd covered the final stretch, and Derek watched 3 Corvellan scouts break into a dead run the moment recognition crossed their faces. What followed happened faster than Derek had time to process. Scouts shouting confirmation into communication devices, a response that traveled up some invisible chain faster than seemed physically possible, and within the hour, the Empress herself arriving at the relief encampment with an escort too large and too fast to have been anything but improvised the instant the message reached her. Thrina Corvell did not move like an empress when she saw her daughters. She moved like a mother who had spent 6 days rehearsing a grief. She'd refused grieving, only to discover she didn't need it after all. She held both of them for a long time before she trusted herself to speak. And when she finally looked up, searching the gathered faces for whoever had made this possible, her eyes settled on Derek, standing slightly apart from the celebration, looking distinctly uncomfortable with the attention now pivoting toward him. "You found them," she said. "Got lucky," Derek said. Ilian's tent collapse left a gap. Corvash left tracks she probably didn't mean to leave. "You carried my daughter 40 kilometers through contested ground with a fever that should have killed her." "She's stubborn," Derek said. "Wouldn't let go even unconscious." Thrina studied him for a long moment, the particular calculation of someone deciding how to repay something that couldn't actually be measured in conventional terms. I told my general, she said, that I would give whoever brought my daughters home anything they asked for. Derek glanced toward Elian and Corvash, both now wrapped in warm blankets, both alive, both finally safe enough to simply rest. I don't need anything, he said. Job's done. That's not how gratitude works, Thrina said, something almost amused flickering beneath her exhaustion. Try again. Derek considered this, glancing once more at the twins, then back at the Empress. There's a settlement 3 valleys west of here, he finally said. Lost half its grain stores in the same incursion that hit your garrison. Nobody's prioritizing them because they're not strategically significant. He paused. That's where I'd send whatever you were planning to give me. Thrina Corvell looked at him for a long moment, recalculating the way people sometimes do when someone surprises them in a direction they hadn't anticipated. Done, she said simply. Then, after a pause that felt heavier than the words deserved, and you'll stay in Corvell's service, not as a contractor, as something with considerably more permanence. Derek opened his mouth to argue, glanced once more at Elian's exhausted, grateful smile, and decided some battles weren't worth winning. I'll need to think about it, he said. He didn't think about it for very long.